You buy your first property, the strategy seems to be working, then suddenly you're stuck. The banks won't lend more, the rent doesn't cover enough, and you're left thinking, what now? In today's episode, I'm chatting with Ayinka, an ex-engineer, now residential buyer's agent who went through that exact journey. He bought 4 properties in Melbourne, hit the wall on finance, and started to realize his whole strategy needed to change. Fast forward to today, he's added over $500,000 in equity and $20,000 of cash flow just from a single commercial deal we got him.
We came to you and we said, please, this is what we're after. We need another good commercial. So we spoke to Steve and we had a good chat about what we were after. And I said, look, this agent's looking at the moment, but it's not coming to us what we want. We trust you and this is what we're after. And you said, yep. Leave it with me. And then, about a week later, an option came through to the emails and I said, holy moly, this is not just a good property. This is an amazing property. This is exactly what I'm after. I'm really satisfied to where everything's going at the moment. So, but like I said, if we go back to that commercial, that was a big game changer for us. It was really good.
We talk about the early mistakes that held him back and how you can avoid them, why just trying to accumulate properties doesn't equal financial freedom, when to pivot from residential to commercial, and how one deal changed his whole portfolio and lifestyle. His words. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Commercial Property Investing Explained series. I'm Steve Palise, your host, and today we've actually got one of our competitors on and also an ex-engineer. So we were just saying off air that we're like 2 peas in the pods. So I'd like to welcome to the show, Ayinka.
Okay, thanks for having me, Steve. Look, I really appreciate being here. I don't think I'm a competitor of yours, mate. I think you're a much more established firm and everything like that. I'm just in the background, so
but we're
glad to be here.
We're actually really similar. Like we both love travel. We both moved overseas, and we do this for lifestyle. And that's why I'm having you on as well. Like it's like we are very, very similar, and both ex-engineers.
I mean, I think hearing you on other podcasts as well, and just speaking to you and seeing your socials, I think our values are very similar, and what we want in life and having young kids and everything like that, we're on a very similar path in life. So
we outside of you being a client, like we actually talk quite a lot on social. I almost 100%. Say we're friends.
First time we're meeting. Crazy.
But thanks for coming on.
No worries, pleasure.
So today we're just going to let's just go through your story so people can kind of see. Like I always get asked about, should I move into property from investing? Should I buy a commercial? When should I change from residential?
Yep.
Should I stay as an engineer? Like I literally had a call yesterday with a prospect saying, I want to jump ship and come from engineering. So there's a bit of a fear. So let's, I think, touch on all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's maybe start at the beginning. Childhood, parents, what you did for work, how you got into engineering, and then maybe your portfolio journey after that.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I was, I don't think I was actually born in Africa. I was born in Nigeria.
I did not know that.
No, it's a bit of a wild spin at the start. But basically right back in the 80s, there was the whole civil war and everything like that in Sri Lanka. And so a lot of families from Sri Lanka started to move overseas for, I suppose, a better upbringing for the kids and all that kind of thing. And Africa was actually quite a bit of a goldmine back then in terms of salaries and acceptance of Sri Lankan immigrants and all that. And my dad found a job in Nigeria, and there I was born. But I suppose after a couple of years, it started to get quite rowdy and quite dangerous. And, we actually then pivoted over to Papua New Guinea of all places, which wasn't really much of a change, to be honest, in terms of the reputation in the area. But
what was your dad doing at the time for work?
So he was in agriculture.
Okay.
So he was a research scientist. So he was based in universities. So he got quite a bit of, back then there was a lot of opportunities through his degree and everything to go overseas and work. So he pivoted over to Papua New Guinea. But again, that was also after a year, that was very quick, where he said, this is not the right place for us. And so he goes, okay, where else can I go? Which is a little bit more stable. We don't want to move again. So we moved over to New Zealand.
Yep. The accent?
Yep. It's still there, some words.
It's definitely still there.
Yeah, so we moved over when I was 4 years old to a very small place called Palmerston North, which not many people know, but it's just above Wellington. Okay. So grew up there, had a great childhood. It's a small city, but we had a lot of of good family friends where we were able to associate with, and it was quite a community feel. So it wasn't like those big cities where you're sort of on your own. Big backyard, play cricket in the backyard or rugby or whatever it was. Went to school, grew up being a Kiwi. Went to uni in Christchurch after a while, and did my engineering degree. I think because I was, number one, my dad probably pushed me, into that space. But I think, being Sri Lankan and being, all right at maths, which most of us are, that sort of led me to electrical engineering. And
a lot of maths in that.
Yeah, a lot of maths, a lot of physics, which is sort of my
I
team.
remember I did fine at mathematics, and I remember like learning imaginary numbers. I'm like, when am I ever going to use this? And then when I did robotics at university, I'm like, oh, electrical engineering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those imaginary things. Oh, God knows. But then I worked in a company called Becker in Auckland. So I moved up there and used about 5% of what I learned at uni, as most degree, jobs do. So spent some time in Auckland there, living the young single life and in the 20s and really getting out of home and everything like that and getting your independence. So made a lot of mates and all that kind of thing. But I think as a lot of Kiwis see it, they either move after a little while to either Australia or to UK. I think that's the big ticket.
A lot of them, funnily enough, because you travel as well, like a lot of them actually end up going back. So they go move to the big smoke because they're like, oh, the grass is greener. Yeah. Then they do it, and they know we have kids, and they're like, no, let's go back to the relaxed life again.
Because my parents are back there, so they can help. So I think that was the main thing. But I do have a lot of mates who did say, look, I'll move for a couple of years and move back, and they never did. They stayed in Australia. So so
partner from the UK came over for 2 years, and 7.5 years later, I got a kid, citizenship.
That's it. I think grass is greener to a big degree here. So very, very fortunate to be able to do all this because, in terms of the childhood, we had a fairly humble, moderate upbringing. We weren't coming from the riches, and I think that's a very common story with a lot of, especially immigrants like us in that kind of generation. But we're very lucky. I got taught the value of money. And I think that definitely carried through my journey, which we'll get to. But in terms of my habits with money, it's, very frugal, very careful, to a degree now it's changed. But back then it was a very safe, savings orientated mindset.
We were just talking about off air, but when we travel about like splurging on like business class stuff, we both can't bring it, even though we can afford it, we just both can't bring ourselves to do it regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think these days it's putting, because we've both got kids, I think, where the money makes sense, we'll put it in there. But, for a lot of cases, for me at least, it's certainly not a big spending spree for me from a lifestyle perspective now.
I think we both want to spend money on experiences. And if you're watching this, you'll see like we're wearing a hoodie, I'm wearing like a $20 industry t-shirt. That's the norm.
Yes.
I associate money with experiences. So whenever I splurge on like 20 grand on a business class flight, I'm like, oh, that could have been a 20 grand Maldives holiday in one of those bungalow huts on the water for a week. And so all of a sudden I'm like, which one would I prefer? And I'm like, actually, I don't value the actual being comfortable for 30 hours on a plane.
It's funny you mentioned the clothes. I think I had a thing called Barker's. I get just teased by it all the time because I had it for about 20 years and these clothes are probably 10 years old. So I think we're on the same page with that. But so that's really a bit about, my upbringing over there in New Zealand, moved over to Melbourne and that's where I suppose my, my interest into property and investing at least came into fruition.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. That's fun. So when was the first property? So we started residential?
Yeah. So I spent about a couple of years looking in Melbourne, as you do, because I was not educated. I lived in Melbourne. I was only looking in Melbourne. So, that's where I thought that's the only place I can invest in.
Grew up in Western Sydney, bought in Western Sydney, same.
Yep. So, this was in 2012 and, I ended up buying my first property, which was a townhouse in a suburb called Reservoir. That was for about 420. And back then that was off the plan. And, as I got sucked in, like most people, the stamp duty savings, the, depreciation, all that kind of thing. If I bought a house, which probably went for about 450 in that time frame, I probably would have made about 300 to 400 grand more at this time. So,
You know, what's funny is I've done this a lot and spoken to probably 4,000, 5,000 people. Most of the really successful ones have had a bad
100%.
story stuff because it forced them to reevaluate. If you just bought that property, you would have been like, oh, this is all right. And then you probably would have bought 3 or 4 in Melbourne. Melbourne would have stopped and you would have what I've done wrong now. You need that little kick up the bum to be like, okay, let's take a step back and analyze this.
Absolutely. I think, look, I don't have any regrets on my portfolio, but there's certain things I could have easily done better. At the end of the day, I suppose, I wasn't cash rich, and perhaps that townhouse gave me, like, through the journey didn't give me any issues, whereas a house, I could have had other issues, and so there's could have been pros and cons, but at the end of the day you've got to live with your decisions. But it's funny you say you buy 3 or 4 in Melbourne. That's what I did. Because I didn't really understand what to do, and I went quite aggressive, and I think because I went quite aggressive, buying, I think 3 or 4 in a very quick succession, and I'm happy to go through them. But I didn't even look at going outside the interstate region. I didn't get the education. Back then there wasn't as many, sources. So
it was probably the start of the buyer's agent realm where people actually started promoting, like, oh, you can go buy a house in Logan in Queensland for 300 grand, and so that was probably the start
around then. That's right. But I had a bit of a ego, or
I'm going to call it engineer arrogance.
Arrogance.
They all engineers do, because there's a right way and a wrong way, and their way's the right way.
100%. I didn't want to go outside my realm of thinking, and I ended up buying the next suburb over the next year, which was a house. Then we bought, that for 330 in a suburb called Thomastown. We then pivoted over to another suburb called Mooroolbark, and we paid 415 there. But then actually through this journey, I met my wife, when we bought the second property, and she was coming along with me on the journey too. And I think that's really important to have someone to have, to be on the same page. So, this property portfolio wouldn't be anything without her, because she could have stopped me in my tracks pretty quick.
That's from a sales point of view, the biggest stopper is normally if a partner's not on board. That's the chat you need to have.
100%. Yeah. No, she was fully on board. I think she was learning at the same time as me. And so, so basically bought in Thomastown, then Mooroolbark, and then a suburb called Deer Park, all in about 3-4 years, and acquired about 4 properties in Melbourne because we didn't know any better.
Was there a plan at the point of view? Like for me at that time, like it was just, the plan was accumulate. How do I get to 5 properties? How do I get to 10 properties? Like you didn't really care about the other stuff. You didn't care about portfolio size or cash flow. It was just like, I've got to get the next one. Got to get the next one. It was a number bean counting exercise.
Absolutely. I think, again, I think it was a little bit of ego and arrogance. I think, I could get this many, and so I'm ahead of the pack. There was absolutely no planning or forecasting involved, So, whilst I appreciate we took action, and I think we were very fortunate. Like if we say, I lived in Perth, if I lived in Perth at the time and acquired 4 properties in Perth, it'll be nowhere in a decade, right? So I was fortunate in Melbourne. It actually went through a cycle during that time. So a lot of them actually did well. So I was very fortunate in that case. But yeah, I could have done a lot better. And I think I got to the point where, Jesus, Melbourne yields are so low. How am I supposed to keep going here? And again,
it was a little bit easy in 2012 because the banks basically, if you had the equity, they were kind of thrown. But as time went on, it was just getting tougher and tougher.
Well, I'm borrowing 95% because back then interest rates were low, 95% loans. So I'm leveraged to my eyeballs. I was like, the thing that saved me was, again, I was a very good saver. But I reckon if I had a major roof issue or a major defect or something which went wrong, I would have had to sell 1, 2 potentially. So I think I rode the wave of luck quite well, at least in that respect. But then I thought, okay, things have to change here.
Funnily enough, making it about me, I had the same thing where it's like, 1 month I had an air conditioner go, a roof started leaking, and I think it was a hot water system break. And I actually had to go back to bank of mum and dad being like, can I have $5,000 to get through this? But at the same time, I was an engineer. I was also working on the weekends at Coles packing shelves because I needed that little slush fund. So you say you might have sold, but you might have made it work.
I might have made it work, And I think, look, all these properties are in the 400s and 500s. And then we bought our forever home, quote unquote, which lasted 2 years in Altona North. So that's where my wife used her first home grant and everything, and we bought there, and we were supposed to live there forever and have a rainbow fairy end, and lo and behold, 2 years later we moved to Sydney, and then we moved back from Melbourne, and then we were moving everywhere. And
was that for work?
I wanted to be close to my family at that time. And so, we spent a couple of years, but we thought, okay, Sydney had gone off the Richter scale then. Like we couldn't even afford a house back then because we had all this other debt, and we didn't want to, sell anything. I think that's another thing that we did at least well. So we came back to that house. And then a few years later, we made the big trip overseas. So but that was sort of the start of the journey. And then come 2022, when I'd made the decision, I'm going to stop work because these properties have done quite well. we started to pivot, more interstate.
Yep.
So we went into Brisbane, then we went into Perth. So we caught the right on that. And that's where I got a lot more educated before doing all that. But I think, the big thing was that the yields were straining us because we've got to a decent sized portfolio now. And I was thinking, what should I do now? In terms of the cash flow is not going to get us to where we want to. That's when my spreadsheet started coming up. I'm like, geez, what can I do here?
You realize every time you buy another property, you're digging a hole.
Yeah.
All the banks just won't let you dig that hole.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, it's an important lesson because, I keep saying the number of properties does not make the difference in your portfolio. To an extent it does. You've got to have enough for options, but to get to, a huge amount is not necessary. And I think especially in residential, the yields are extremely low. Even if rents do catch up, everything else catches up because you're paying all the outgoings. Yeah. So that's where I started to think, okay, what am I going to do next?
Yep. And hence commercial probably came on your radar.
Yeah, look, I joined, Facebook groups and learned a little bit more about commercial. And I thought, look, I've got the risk appetite for it. We've got the deposits. Some of our properties have done well, so we ended up taking I should say, on all the properties except one, we had used our savings for buying the properties. So we built up a lot of equity. So I thought, okay, we'll sell one, buy commercial. For the first one. So I was all excited, didn't really know much about it, but we engaged a buyer's agent.
We won't say their name.
No, we won't say their name. We thought, okay, this is going to be a great opportunity for us. To be fair, we didn't have a huge amount of borrowing capacity. We had about 500 at the time. So we ended up getting a property in Gold Coast. It was a retail tenancy.
That was through the other buyer's agent.
The other buyer's agent. Yeah, this is the first one. And this was in 2022. And it started off, okay, we had a tenant in there and we were getting an income, but we started to see the tenant not paying on time.
Out of curiosity, so what was the purchase price and the approximate yield you're getting at the time?
Yeah, so it was purchased for about 420.
Okay.
And the yield wasn't too bad. The net yield we were getting at the time was 6%.
Well, one of the things I want to point out for the listeners as well is a lot of people get caught up on yield when you're in a lower price point. What they don't realize is on something like that, a 420 grand property, $2,000 a year in difference in rent changes the yield drastically. So when people are like, oh, I want a 6%, I want a 5%, I want a 7%, you're missing the point. Buy the quality one. Who cares if it's 4% or 6% because it's a couple grand a year.
Look, there's so much we can talk about the lower purchase price in commercial, right? The type of tenants, the type of businesses, there's a whole swag of things we could go on about. But at that time I was uneducated and we thought, okay, we can get into a low price point. We just thought about the cash flow, as you said, that wrongly. And so, we ended up getting this property. So 426% yield. It's a retail tenancy in Gold Coast. Started to have problems from about month 3. The lease was finishing about 6 months. And
did they give you rental ledgers and things like that? Did you see any history of that?
We did get rental ledgers and it was haphazard. So we were okay with that in the sense that we always got told that the landlord in commercial has a bit more power in that sense. If they don't pay on time, it's not such a big deal as residential.
The small ones are sometimes haphazard. So I own a hairdresser and I would say for the last 2 years, they are either 3 days behind on rent or 5 days. There's just but if you look at the rental ledger, it's been like that forever. And it's just because they're a small business.
Absolutely. So that's why we were okay with it. And then the lease ended it and they actually ended up wanting to vacate. And so because their business wasn't doing well. Next person comes, they actually signed another lease, but they ended it after 1 year. And this was now 2024 March.
What was the street exposure, right? Is it like on a main street or is it in like a little nook in one of those little kind of inbuilt shopping centers?
Yeah, great question. Look, that's where I'm coming to. I think the big issue with this tenancy is that it's part of a greater residential complex, but the location of this particular unit doesn't have any good street appeal. So
it's just the apartments on top.
It's apartments on top, but it's you gotta go do well to actually find it. You've got to go through a corridor, down the left, across the right, and so it's facing out to basically a corridor within the complex. So it's not.
I know the ones you're talking about.
It's not got a street exposure basically. So we didn't think much of it, but lo and behold, we're standing here today, and it's been vacant since March 2024. So that we're talking now almost 18 months of vacancy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge, lesson for us, but also a lesson for your listeners as well in terms of the due diligence, in my opinion, if I rewind back to when we got that property and what I know now, it wasn't done. Not just the street appeal and the exposure, but the type of tenancy it is, and I think the big ticket item here is the location, and where it sits, and whilst we're obviously disappointed, we don't want to really let that go because we still feel there might be some opportunities. So, but we are tossing up whether we offload it or renovate it. For a new tenant, but we've almost lost confidence in the area to think of a renovation.
There's no right answer because you can hold out hoping that you get a tenant. You might get a tenant for 5 years and it's great, or it might be another year and then you're selling it anyway, and that's the annoying thing. And I don't want to sugarcoat commercial. That's the risk of commercial.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're very, very fortunate that we've got a very large residential portfolio that has done well. And I think you touched on a question earlier about when do I think you pivot. And my opinion is we get into the residential game first where we can leverage and get as much growth through that perspective. And I think as long as you do it well, then you can start looking into your commercials and looking at getting incomes. But I do believe you do need something like commercials. Residentials just won't do it for you in terms of the general income expectations that you want.
But everyone's different. Like we get some mum and dad clients where they're not like us. They don't want to travel all year round and do all that type of stuff. They know they're going to be a police officer and a nurse and they're going to do it for 30 years. And they don't have to take on the risk of buying a little cheap retail. They can just chip away and buy some good neutrally geared residential. But we're a bit different, hence why we're probably bonded.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, everyone's different. And obviously you can buy potentially 2 or 3 good residentials, sit on it for 30 years, get $3 million, $4 million of equity and sell it off like that. Of course you can do that.
Most of our clients actually get forced into commercial because their broker says you can't borrow anymore. But, we've got this lease stock option if you want to keep it. So they've got the equity, they just don't have the leverage anymore, and they kind of get cornered into it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, with you guys coming on and educating people in this space, I think has opened up a lot more opportunities and options for the everyday mum and dads, including myself. And so, I think that's the journey that we went on first. But look, that's happened over the last year, which is right at the end of our journey, which I've learned everything since, and it hasn't stopped us, investing.
Well, you came on board with Palise property as well.
Exactly. I think about only 3 months later after we bought that one, which was still going okay, we actually engaged this guy again because we wanted to get another one quite quickly because I was about to stop work and I was trying to utilize every type of income I can to get as much these commercial properties because I knew that was the end of our journey. So we engaged them again, not knowing what was going to happen obviously with that first one. And they came back and they just weren't following the brief. I said we needed that was a retail. I wanted industrial to just diversify my portfolio a bit, but they were looking at a retail in the same location, which is, thank God, imagine. So I said, this isn't quite working out. So I said, Mr. Palise, would you kindly have a chat and, if we can come on board and see what you guys can do for us. And
well, one of the things I want to point out, and this for people who want to use your services for residential buyer's agency, is you were very upfront and honest. You were like, I'm talking to this buyer's agent. You even told that buyer's agent you were going to engage me as well and work in parallel. Like there was full disclosure, whereas a lot of people they try to be slimy, being like, I'll just get 2 or 3 buyers agents looking for me, but you were upfront and direct. So
I'm always like that. I think through engineering and being in construction, you've got to be like that. You can't. Well,
you don't know any different. You don't know any different. Because when you're designing something or doing something, there's the right way and the wrong way. There's no sign, and that's where we talk off air about sales and stuff, how it's different. It's about a little bit more of the dream selling, less about the actual procedure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think ethically you got to be in the right mindset with that. So yes, we came to you and we said, I'd seen you around, but I was very confident. We had a chat. I think you were in the UK at the time, and we had a chat. I think we called each other at night, and you said, "No, we can help." And I said, "Please, this is what we're after." And mate, I think about a week later, it came to me, this option. So then after we got that commercial, we wanted to get another commercial quite quickly. And, my job was about to, end and we were about to go overseas. We had these grand plans. So I said, okay, we need another good commercial. And so we spoke to Steve and we had a good chat about what we were after. And I said, look, this agent's looking at the moment, but it's not coming to us what we want. We trust you, and this is what we're after. And you said, yep, leave it with me. And then about a week later, an option came through to the emails, and I said, holy moly, this is not just a good property. This is an amazing property. This is exactly what I'm after. Yep. And it was I can explain it. So it was in Perth. Yep. It was a industrial property, and it already had a tenant in it. Yep. But I think the big thing was, we
got that for 700K.
We got it for 700, but in my opinion, I think we talked about it was under rented at the time, and I think obviously through commercial, if it's under rented and you could put the rent up.
It was also at the swing of where rental increases in industrial went through the roof as well. So it was under rented, about to have a 30% rental increase as well.
Absolutely, and I think this was in a pocket where there was limited industrial in a very established suburb, and I knew that suburb, and that's quite a reputed suburb too. And so I thought, this is looking pretty good. And not only that, we noted that rest of the units in the area, which wasn't many, was actually mostly owner occupied as well. So it showed to me there's appeal for both sides. Yeah. But actually, just from the front, it looked great, and we were really excited about this. Yep. And so we jumped on that one straight away, and we said, yep, let us know what's next. And you said, we'll send the due diligence and do all that sort of thing. So we got the contract signed. And then the next thing, which I couldn't believe, was this 80-page due diligence report. And I said, where was that on this first buyer's agent? Yeah. And I was like, this is what a good commercial buyer's agent should do, but we had no understanding of all of that. And so
that was our old reports as well. Now our new ones is that on steroids as well.
Yeah. So I've heard, but that was, that was fantastic. Obviously looking at the comparisons and all that, which you do on Rizzy, but the fact that you went to the point of interviewing the tenant, understanding the businesses and the competition around, I think that really gave a holistic picture for us in terms of what we needed. And I think that just shows to me the difference between different buyers agents and the type of performance you can get by doing that kind of due diligence, because you need that in commercial.
Yeah, we actually had a client jump ship from another buyer's agent a couple of weeks ago, and they actually showed us their due diligence report, and it was one page. And I'm like, how are you covering like all these items? Like,
can't even do that on Rizzy. Yeah,
check the outgoings. Here's the cash flow. That's it.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
You might be right 1 in 3 times. Yep. But the 2 out of 3 times you're going to burn yourself.
And look at my first property. If that's a classic case. So I think for listeners out there, if you don't get the right due diligence from your buyer's agent, especially on commercial, you're looking for trouble. So I mean that settled pretty quick, and let's fast forward a couple of years.
That was about 2022.
Yeah, 2022, and then the lease finished in 2024, so last year. Yep. And they actually signed up another 5 + 5 on a 20 grand increase of rent. Yeah. So with that 20 grand, based on the cap rates now, because I think the cap rates have come down.
They're close to 5 now.
Yeah,
so
they've come down.
In Perth where we bought, 5 to 5.5% is the general cap rate.
Yeah,
now,
so just on a 5.5. So worst case, I think it's gone up 500 grand just by signing that piece of paper.
Half $500,000 in 2 years. Yeah,
it's insane. So
and you got a 5-year tenant, a good
5-year tenant, and likely going to be another 5 years. So they've been established there for the last 20 years as well. So it's an amazing result for us. And I was saying off air, that particular property has changed the trajectory of our property portfolio from not just from a portfolio value, but also a cash flow perspective. So
even just a mindset as well of being like, okay, I can get this, like just a 20 grand increase, for instance, like residential, like say you buy a good 700K property and it's maybe 35 grand a year. It's almost like the rent doubling. You have to wait 15 years for that. It's happened in 3 years' time.
Mate, I think, it's so, the 2 properties that we've got are just so extreme. It's not funny. But I think if we had only had this other first property to begin with and all these issues started, I think I might have been gun shy in commercial, I'll be honest. And, thank goodness that, we bought straight after with you guys, and that property has, like I said, changed our portfolio.
It's funny because you said it was an amazing deal. It was a good deal. Yeah. Like I don't buy unicorns. I buy
I'm relative in my portfolio.
But that was the thing. It's a very stock standard warehouse. We got it for a good price and it's a good location.
Yep.
but there's nothing outstanding about it. It's not like a huge value add or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's the point. You've now got the capital growth. You've also got 20 grand more rent, like in 3 years' time. And hopefully in 5 years' time, we're talking about a 50 grand rental increase and it's doubled in value.
Well, I think, and also the purchase price again was 700. Like you tend to get these massive increases potentially. I'm just saying potential, but in the higher end of prices with better commercials and more leverage and all that kind of thing, because the percentage compounds, right? Yeah. 700K for that to happen to us, I think that was that was amazing for us.
Yeah, no, it's a good buy. Like it's generally a good buy, man. So I'm happy for you. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, we really appreciate it. So that'll be a long-term hold for us.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm curious to kind of dive into personal life a little bit as well. So you love travel as well, but then you've also made the switch now to being a resi buyer's agent.
Yep.
So I'm an advocate for you. Like we still chat, we give advice all the time and stuff like that. If you're looking for a smaller company with high attention to detail.
Yeah.
So you want to give a little plug for your company. So wealth engineers.
The wealth engineers. Yeah, we're called the wealth engineers. I think for me, going back to personal life, we got to the point after that commercial where I wanted to spend time with our kids. That's when we started to actually we had our first one 21 and our next one came in 23. And I thought
2 and 4. Yeah.
2 and 4 now. Yep. And I said to my wife, now I want to spend time with kids. That is my priority. That is absolute priority number one. The business will come after that.
We've had this chat where we know we've probably got 5 years where you get to spend lots and lots of time with them. After school, then becomes activities, soccer, cricket, blah, blah, blah. Like they start disappearing. And I'm the same. I'm like, if I'm postponing wealth for another 5 years, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, let's enjoy the time now.
100%. I mean, to that point, I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And I think that was the priority for me. So we actually made a big call with my wife to say, look, we're actually going to pack up. We're going to move overseas. We didn't even know where at that point. and just spend time
same
with
as
the
me.
kids.
I packed up and moved overseas and started a business as well as a buyer's agent.
Well, I think, the kids, like I said, the kids took priority and whatever happens with the business happens. I don't think everyone asked me, oh, you're so brave to do that. I'll be honest, because having the financial security we did with the property portfolio, I don't think we would have done it otherwise. Yeah. And I think most people are in that boat where they don't have that financial security, so they've got to keep working and working. Yeah. That's obviously we do what we do.
Especially if you've got a negatively geared portfolio, it's actually impossible to do that choice.
Well, I mean, on that note, at that time, my portfolio with the commercials was about positive 60 at the time. That was able let us move to Asia and work and sort of build a business. So I thought we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Suddenly all the rate hikes started, right? And then my portfolio actually went negative 60. Yep. So it was 120K turnaround. So I was like, oh, geez, this is going to be a short trip. And then, but we moved there. And look, fortunately, I started the business while I was in India. Yep. And, we moved there more for our kids to be exposed with culture, be exposed to, a lot of community feel and that kind of thing. And, we started the business and it started to pop along a little bit. But, I was happy where it was. We had enough savings buffers in place to cater for these interest rate hikes, but the experiences that we had, we can never forget them. Yeah, and I think the kid, especially our older one now, who remembers it, he constantly wants to go back. Yeah. And so we managed to make a lot of memories through that experience, as per you did as well.
One of the things I always say on this podcast is like a passive income makes work more enjoyable.
Yep.
So like when you don't have to be there, it's really fun because you pick and choose what you want to do, and that's why working for yourself is another layer on that. Whereas if you don't need the money and you get to do it for your time, you can be like, oh, I'm not working for the next 2 days.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, at that point in time, obviously the rate went up. So I was like, okay, if I have to go back to work, I will. But I really, really didn't want to. Yeah. And then, look, the business started to pick up and
got a few staff now, which is awesome.
Yeah, we've got a few staff now, and we're helping a lot of friends and family and referrals and all that kind of thing. But I'm just happy to be in the position where I don't want to be the next big $100 million buyer's agent. I just want to do what I'm doing. I think we had this conversation. I just want to have the time with the kids, and I'll help people wherever I can, especially the mistakes that I've made. I want to obviously portray that to make sure that they don't make the same issues. And
it is funny when people say, oh, I want to go with a really, really big buyer's agent because they're big. And I'm just like, if their goal is to become a billionaire, do they really care about you? Like, do you not believe the person who's actually living the dream that you want to live? And that's part of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's a lot of good buyer's agents out there, big or small, but
a lot of bad ones.
A lot of bad ones as well. Yeah, I agree. And obviously business as it grows, sometimes devalues what you are trying to do. And so, you know, you start looking for other things. So, you know, I think going back to my childhood and becoming, you know, being quite modest, being quite humble with money and all that kind of thing, I'm not looking for the biggest thing here. And so, yeah, I think we've arguably got more than what we need in our portfolio, to be honest. And so, yeah.
Interest rates keep coming down as well. It becomes even more attractive, and then a pay down situation happens.
Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, I'm really satisfied to where everything's going at the moment. So, but yeah, like I said, if we go back to that commercial, that was a big game changer for us. It was really good.
You don't have to give me an answer to this. You might not know the answer. What do you think maybe the next 5 years is going to look? Is it going to be a pay down of the resi portfolio? Is it going to be a shift from the resi to commercial? Is it just going to be a sit and wait and just enjoy life and get business income?
Yeah, no, we know. The intent, although I said we've got enough, I think we do want to get one in the SMSF. So that will just sort of be on the side. But other than that, we'll probably just refinance the portfolio for another 5 years. And then, you know, from there, I think, you know, let's say 5-10 years down the track, we'll start to sell down and potentially get another commercial. I'm not too sure yet. But the intent for personally is that, you know, we want to stay in Sydney for the next maybe couple of years, and then we do want to go overseas again. We want to make, you know, have that experience with life and everything like that. So obviously we've got to do what we can now whilst we're in Australia, from a property perspective, but we'll come back eventually and sell down. So that's
the good thing with being a buyer's agent, because I was a remote buyer's agent as well, is you're still earning Australian dollars. So it's actually not putting a bottleneck on your portfolio, even you are overseas, because it's still Australian income. Like you're effectively still Australian.
Yeah, I think geo arbitrage is what they say. So yeah, it's especially when I was in India, I think that went a long way. India is obviously a very affordable place to live, and so you know, that really helped, and with all those rate hikes which I mentioned.
There's even like, I get all the time people coming, oh, I want a 200k passive income. Like, why do you want that? Like, oh, I want to travel the world. And I'm like, I spent about 120 grand over 2 years, and that wasn't me slumming it in Europe. What are you spending 100 grand a year on? Like, I think look, I resonate with yourself a lot, because I feel that you've gone to a level which most buyers agents aspire to, but you are still very humble with your expectations, and I find that quite rare. You know, I'm certainly not at the buyers agency you are, but you know, your sort of humbleness in terms of what you're after and the experiences that you have, that's why I resonate with yourself. I can't resonate with the ones that want, you know, $100 million in equity or massive passive incomes. I'm trying to work out a way how to not badmouth people, but like the high net worth clients. So we've got a lot of clients that are wealthier than me. Like, I bought a $27 million commercial property, stuff like that. They're not happier. That's the weird thing. They're just grafting, working, and it's just kind of like, okay, I don't want. And I luckily got exposed to that, because I was buying properties for all these people and being like, I actually don't want that. And then you're seeing like other buyers agents like killing themselves working 7 days a week. You're like, well, I don't want that either. Like, so it's like, where's my sweet spot?
Well, I think looking forward, like this is probably more philosophical, but you know, when you're close to, you know, heading off, you're either gonna have, you know, you're not going to use that money, obviously, or you're going to pass all this money down to your kids. Do you really want to pass that $20 million to your kids, or do you want them to learn the ropes? And at least for me, I want them to learn the ropes. And so for me, I just want to lead a very sort of modest life where I'm more than comfortable, but let the sort of kids learn what they can.
There's a level as well with the passive income where your life doesn't actually change. And I'll probably say it's probably around 100K. Like once you earn 100K, it can change, the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the level in regards to how classy and high end you do it, but it won't change actual experience. Like with 100K, you can go travel the world, live in Europe, do all that type of stuff. If you want to have a super yacht, no, you're not going to get that. You could still pay for a super yacht for a day, but it's the frequency of that stuff can actually change. But in regards to like, I was in Greece for 6 weeks and I think I spent $2,000 on the Airbnb that was on the water. Like you don't need a lot.
No. And I think, you know, look, obviously cost of living keeps increasing. So, but the passive incomes keep increasing too. So that's fine. But, you know, when you get to 50, 60, you know, what physically can you actually do? You know, post that, you know, there's only so much you can do anyway. And so, I think it's just a perception and a monetary figure, or at least from socials, that people are after certain figures.
Yeah.
You don't need it. And so I'd be very careful.
That's my dog, everyone who's just heard the dog that was sitting on my lap barking.
Yeah. So I think we're very similar in that respect.
This has been absolutely awesome, man.
Thanks, man.
If anyone wants to get in touch with the second best residential buyer's agent in Australia, do you want to give yourself a bit of a plug?
Yeah, sure. No, it's you can just search me on LinkedIn, Ainka Logan, or just look at the Wealth Engineers on Google or socials, and you should be able to find me.
I'll tag you in the copy and the post for this as well. So again, anyone watching this, just click the link for the Wealth Engineers. But you do a lot of good podcasts and content as well. And I'm even going to be a guest, I think, next week on it.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, we're going to get Steve on and get the microphone on him and make sure we learn about his story, which is similar. So yeah, really excited about just interviewing people on the investor journeys. That's the podcast about people's stories. So you can feel free to check out that as well.
Awesome, man. Let's go get that self-managed super fund property.
That's it.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. This has been brilliant.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.